So be straightforward and say, you know what, I'm new in this. This is maybe my second or third or first job, whatever that may be. I'm going to ask a lot of questions because I want to do a really good job for this company. When you lay it out like that, and I'm asking questions so that I don't make mistakes, and so I understand the why behind what I'm doing, I have yet to run into someone who says you don't need to know. And if they do, they're probably not someone you want to work for anyway. I am an HR business partner for the research and development side of North America at KWS. And KWS is a crop seed breeding company. So we develop seed for, in the US, it's predominantly sugar beet, but we also develop it for, we have wheat breeding, and then we also sell rye, barley, oats in the US. Globally, we also have corn, oilseed rape. We're getting more into the vegetables, so we also sell spinach in the US, spinach seed in the US. And I support everybody who does the research, from the biotechnology labs to the breeders to the farm people that are growing the seed that's not yet ready for commercial sale to the farmers.
Wow, that sounds really interesting. And for some reason, I was thinking that your role would be like for all of the depart, like everyone, but I guess that would be a little too much.
Well, we're in 17 states, and so although our corporate headquarters are in Germany, that's fairly complicated within the US because we have 4 business units, actually 5 business units in the US. And so we've just divided that workload of our employees between 2 people, and I have the research and development team.
Okay, so that makes sense. So let's dive a little bit deeper into what that means, because it almost sounds like you're doing R&D, but I don't think you are.
No, I'm not.
No. So why don't you tell me a little bit more about that?
So my role is really to be the partner liaison to the business units regarding their HR, their more strategic needs of HR. So that would be like workforce planning and succession planning, performance management, assisting with employee development as far as helping them find mentors or helping managers identify training opportunities, kind of rolling out or being the liaison for corporate-wide initiatives regarding HR. All of our administrative functions of HR, so that would be payroll, the recruiting, offer letters, promotion letters, processing employee changes, is all done out of Berlin. So I'm the local contact for the R&D side of the employees.
Okay. And for KWS, is it just in Germany? So you mentioned Germany and then obviously the US. Are they across the entire world, or is it just the 2 locations?
We're actually in 80 countries.
Okay, wow.
Yes. And KWS is, one of the things I think is very cool about it is it's still an employee, or it's still in a family-owned company.
Okay.
They've been in business for more than 165 years. I think next year will be 170 years. And it's still the family that owned it. 7 generations now.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah.
That's impressive. Yeah. Like 160. I can't. Like that's,
it blows your mind.
Yeah,
right?
I couldn't even imagine. Like 100 years is like whoa, but like 170, yeah. Wow.
It still has a little bit of a small company feel from that respect, because we're not the Bayers, the Syngentas. We're the 4th largest seed company globally, but most people have never heard of us.
I admit, before a little bit prior to this conversation, I know that you're very, there's a lot of pairings, the egg careers and such, and they really applaud what you do. But myself being a little bit more on the food manufacturing side that I focus on, it's a whole new world. So when I knew that I was going to talk to you, I was like, okay, I got to learn more because I don't know much about
Yeah.
them.
So, like from the food side, about 85% of the sugar consumed in the US is grown in the US. And of that 85%, 50% of that is sugar beet and 50% is sugar cane.
Okay.
The other 14 or 15% is sugar cane that's imported, right? So essentially, what we're growing is the seed for about 50% of the sugar consumed in the US.
That's an important role. That is a very important role.
Kind of blows your mind when you think about it.
It does, because we think about the finished product, but so much of its growth gets unlocked before it even gets put in the ground. The development, the thought put into it. So I'm going to jump ahead a bit, but I want to talk about this like seed development, because I just imagine like how does the whole process work? Like, I assume as a farmer, you might be looking, okay, I want to improve my yield. I come to you, like, what happens?
Right. So we sell direct to the farmer, so we're very close to understanding what their needs are, right? Improved yield, improved sugar content, disease management, management over weeds and pesticide needs. So we have both people in the lab who are looking at gene editing and gene modification to create insect resistance in different plants in our different crops, or disease resistance. And then that goes to the breeding group, which are literally picking which plants to crossbreed with which plants to create those traits through the generations of plant. So if you think about, one growing season is one generation, it takes several iterations to get to a point where we can go to the USDA and say, okay, we can prove that this provides this trait. And then we have to do some trials with the USDA. And once that gets passed, then it can go to our pre-commercial process and then commercialized to sell to the end farmer.
Wow.
So it takes anywhere from 7 to 10 years to get a new trait or new aspect of the product to the market, because we have to be able to prove when we say it's got this kind of yield, it's consistent in that kind of yield.
Right, because of course the farmers are looking for something particular, and we've said we're going to give you this product with X, Y, and Z. They want
Right.
to trust that that's what they're going to be getting, because they put a lot of trust into someone like KWS. This is going to be their next
Right.
growing season, and that's their livelihood.
Yes. And in the sugar industry, most of the sugar growers are cooperatives.
Okay.
And so the production plant making the sugar is owned by the farmers who are growing the sugar beet.
Okay.
So they have a vested interest in making sure that what they're buying from us or from any seed provider for sugar beet is what it says it is, and it's the quality that they want. We have a large market share because our quality and understanding is quite high. And our goal, sugar beet is kind of the backbone of KWS. So they took the beets, growing the beets when the world wars were happening. They, with the assistance of England, moved to a different part of Germany that was then protected. And so they could continue and had the sugar beet history and plant material to be able to continue selling and growing beets.
That's amazing. Wow, it's amazing. Again, like I go back to the 170 years number that you gave earlier, like to stay there. That shows, and then as well have the foresight. 7 years. to
Yes.
like just 7 to 10 years. A lot's happened in 7 years, even from the past. How
Right.
how does your units even begin to decide what to look for in the next 7 years? Like, that makes me wonder.
A big part of it is being close to the farmer.
Okay.
Our salespeople are talking to the growers on a regular basis, finding out how much disease pressure they're getting from the different diseases, because the diseases in Minnesota, Wisconsin, or Minnesota, North and South Dakota are different disease pressures than what you get in Idaho or the Wyoming area, right? Because you've got high desert and you've got wet, arable land, or wet land
Yeah.
that's some you need to water, some you don't. So they have different disease needs and growing situations and environments that we stay close to that farmer to understand what they're looking for and what they're up against.
Well, let's take a step back and talk a little bit again about your food role, because this has given me a better understanding about, what KWS actually does. But for yourself, that you mentioned earlier, it was the smaller feeling company, and it's still family owned. And you mentioned a lot of key HR aspects that weren't just hiring, because I don't know, I feel even today's world, a lot of people are just like, if you're HR, you do the hiring and that's kind of it. But of course, there's so much more to an employee being happy. And I think you mentioned mentorship. You mentioned you mentioned a lot of good things. So I want to dive a little bit deeper into how you help facilitate that and what exactly that means.
Absolutely. So we had a culture issue within one of our groups that we had high turnover in that group. We had a lot of mistakes and errors, which when you're doing research is and you only have one season per, or one generation per growing season, that's painful to the breeding team to have those errors happening over and over. So we really looked at what were the skills we needed for that team. And we talked to that team about what were their pain points and what was causing the rift between employee groups, because he kind of had two sets of employees battling against each other within that group. And really sitting down and getting to know each one of those employees, for me to get to know them, and talking to the managers and working through how can we better improve things? What can we do? What training do they need? What's causing those pain points to create discomfort and unhappiness so we could improve that? And what's causing those errors, and how can I help you improve that? And so it's really partnering with each of those managers to help them be successful by creating a workforce that is happy and committed and knowledgeable, because that's part of, we spend way too much time at work to be unhappy. And that's part of what keeps employees engaged. At the same time, we have to make sure we have competitive benefits and competitive wages. But rarely do employees leave because of the benefits or the wages. They leave because they're unhappy. So my focus is more on that culture and keeping employees engaged and helping managers be successful by having the right skills in their teams for what they need to do.
Do you mind me asking about, you said you talked to them one-on-one. I don't, yep. What kind of questions do you even ask, in those types of situations?
Well, first of all, do you have the resources to do your job, right? If I'm being asked to identify plants when I walk through a greenhouse of healthy plants and plants that could have diseases, have I been trained to identify that? Or are you being asked to do something that you don't know how to do? So you don't have the resource knowledge to do your job. Or if the computer systems aren't working, you don't have the resources to track the data, that's a problem. So it's finding out, what are those pain points? And it's just asking, tell me more about your day. How does that work? Help me understand. Help me understand is one of my favorite questions or statements, because there's no judgment to it, right? Versus when you ask a question like, how come you do it this way? Sounds like there's judgment versus help me understand the process that you use, right? You're the expert. Tell me what's working and what's not working.
I'm going to have to steal that. That is a really good phrase. I like that, because just how you've pointed it out right there, I can hear the difference between the two. Like, why are you doing that? It can set radar bells off on a lot of things, because maybe like your parents were like, well, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? But I don't think as many parents are saying I don't know, I'm just throwing that out there because that's the first thing I thought of. So,
well, and talking to HR can be kind of scary.
Yeah.
Right? So I do everything I can to make myself approachable, human, on their level. Because I don't want to be the one that I walk into the office, people say, I didn't do it. Wasn't me. No. So I just come in and I'm like, hey, I'm the goofy HR lady. And, ask them about their personal life. And then sincerely listen and be interested in who they are as people. Because the reality is we have life outside of work, and often those struggles in life impede what's happening at work. So just getting to know people on a person level helps me understand what they're dealing with every day.
I like that.
And it may be, my child keeps having illnesses, so I'm missing a lot of work. Okay, well, can I help you find resources for sick child care? Are you aware that we have this, and this? And just making sure that employees have what they need so they can do their job.
I think that's a nice thing to hear, because I think that we think, like you mentioned, helping find resources. Like, I feel like I wouldn't even think to even mention that to an employer or HR when it's like it's not work related, but it is impeding my work. But
Right.
you to even think that there might be resources that can be helped through to help my personal life through work. That's a good thing to know, to ask that question.
Well, I think we've shifted our work-life balance from separating work and life to it's integrated, and recognizing that my personal life impacts my work, and my work impacts my personal life, right? If I'm constantly worried about being able to afford my student loan payments, and I have and if I had a lot of new grads who had that problem, then I would want to make sure I had the benefits to help teach them about budgeting, to maybe, rather than saving in their 401k, we put the match in their 401k for them making their loan payments. So there's all sorts of ways that we can, as employers, support our employees to remove those pain points in personal life that impact their work life. And we have to think about people as a whole being, not just worker number 12.
So tell me, how did you actually get into HR? Well, like, was it something that you kind of stumbled into, or was it something that you for a long time wanted to do?
Interestingly enough, it's always been kind of woven into the jobs I've had throughout the years. I would say it's a natural role for me, and it fits who I am as a person, my values. So I've been very careful about what companies I work for to make sure they fit my values as well. I work for a company that's family owned. I work for a company that's a mid-sized company where I know every employee that I support by name. I want them to be able to pick up the phone and call me. So I've always wanted to help employees be successful in their jobs. Kind of tear down the barriers, address. I've always fought for the underdog, right? So yeah. But someone who goes into HR to be the savior for employees is going to be very frustrated because you have to balance that role with the fact that we are in business to make money. And there are some decisions that are going to be business based that contradict your emotional person human side. And learning how to balance those and understand what those business decisions do to the employee, having the empathy to address that helps people get through those horrible business decisions, right? Microsoft just announced they're laying off another 9,000 employees, right? Well, that totally upends everybody's day. If I came out and said, all right, now it's time to get back to work, we just made our announcement, that's not empathetic. That's not saying, I recognize this blew up your day. If you need to talk about it, I'm available. If you need to take the rest of the day and, kind of force or go through the process of figuring out what the impact is, because even though you might still have your job, half your team is gone, or your best friend lost their job, that still takes an emotional toll. And we just have to be able to connect to those people. And that was important. That's been important to me. So I got into HR early on. I got my degree in HR and marketing. Marketing to me was a little manipulative because there's this constant spin, but it helps me understand kind of the motivations of employees and people. So I draw on that knowledge from my college degree as well. The way I've grown my HR career is by changing industries. So I've only been in the food industry, in the egg industry for 4 years.
Okay.
But I make it a point to learn as much as I can about the company in order to be able to help the managers meet the needs that they have.
Have you found that the different industries are very different, or there's like a thread that kind of ties throughout, or has it been really new for you for each of them?
The business side is very different. Before this, I was working in public television for 5 years.
That's very different.
And before that, right? Before that, I worked for an international software company.
Which is also different.
Vastly different. The people needs are the same, but how we do that because of the culture of those organizations is different. So again, it challenges me to stay current in how I interact with people. And that's how I continue to grow my career and understanding of the best way to interact with people to be effective and to be genuine, right? People can tell if I ask a question and stop listening, they can tell. So I want to make sure they know they're heard when they're talking to me.
Wow. And when it comes to that, to me, talking to people is a skill. There is that natural ability to do it, but having tough conversations or, figuring out what someone needs or being able to identify, there's just so many skills that are involved. And I know, I can imagine you going into HR, as you mentioned, it's something that you did want to do, but picking up on those skills and learning each industry has been different. So how did you learn these skills? Is it through workshops? Is it through how do you learn to evolve in your role?
It's workshops. It's doing things that are uncomfortable, but finding people who are good at it and watching them do it beforehand. For example, when I used the phrase, help me understand, that's something I learned from someone else. Um, it's through my own growth journey, right? So I continue to take classes and continue to read up on what's happening within HR, but also the greater culture of what's happening um, in society. If you don't kind of have a pulse on what's going on politically, then you don't really have a pulse on how that's impacting your employees. And so you may not be thinking about the price of eggs is causing people stress, as it was prior to our election, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you're not paying attention to those things, you don't realize that the level of stress for people is higher. Or COVID, suddenly working from home was very different for some people. And I still have some managers who don't quite know how to manage somebody working from home. If they can't see them, they're not working. Well, anyone who's worked from home can say that's not true. Sometimes I'm more productive if I work from home. So it's just keeping an open mind and an I'll figure it out attitude. That is probably the greatest skill I learned in college is I'll figure it out. Because we'll make it work. If you can't figure it out and make it work, you're just going to get frustrated and you're never going to grow and learn.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a good mindset and it also makes sure that you put the action with it too. Like, I'll figure it out, but I'm actually gonna start figuring it out now, but I don't know if that's gonna be right now, but I'm gonna try.
Well, and, early in my career, I expected managers to feed me the answer. And not every manager wants to feed you the answer. They want you to figure it out. So that was an important learning for me that I have carried with me. Another thing that I make a point of trying to do is remember that I might eat, sleep, and breathe benefits. Nobody else does. So when I have a new employee starting, I can't assume they know what a copay is. They may have always been on their parents' health plan. They may not know what a pension plan is or how a 401k works. And it's part of my job to make that accessible so that they see the value of why we offer it.
Yeah. I can also imagine it's a little bit challenging because you said about managers feeding you the right answer, but I almost feel like in your role, it's harder to even know what the right answer is because you're dealing with people. Like, I mean, there's not, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but it doesn't feel like there's a lot of right or wrong per se answers because how you talk to one person will be different, received in a different way. It just seems like there's a lot of black and like gray, lots of gray everywhere.
There is a lot of gray, and there's a lot of opportunity for hurt feelings through miscommunication, right? Because we're all human and we tend to communicate the way we want to be communicated with. But slowing down and asking those questions, another thing that I've learned over my career is assume positive intent. If someone says something to me, that didn't work very well. Why did you do it that way? I have to stop and say, they're not saying that just to judge me. They're saying it because there's an opportunity for me to learn and they don't want me to do it again. They're trying to help me. Even if maybe they didn't say it in the nicest way, I'm going to assume the intent behind it was positive for me. That totally flips how you view that feedback and what you're going to do with it. So I also try to flip how I ask my questions in a true, authentic, help me understand kind of way.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's a good way of looking at things. And I love that as we're talking, I hear this, like this thread of this growth mindset and such. And I think that it's a good skill because I feel like it's a skill that you should really have with any career, because you don't want to get stuck. And I can imagine for, like you're mentioning with the world, like HR has shifted a lot, and just post COVID, people's working expectations have different, how they look at work-life balance. Like there's just been so many transitions, so having that pulse on it, and then is it industry specific, is it like overall specific, and just having this growth mindset, it gets you far. It would get you much farther than being stuck.
Yes, employers look for that. Managers want that from their employees. So, if you're a new grad, I think it's important to know those things, because those are the kinds of things nobody tells you about when you're in college. Nobody tells you how to be a good employee.
No, you know how to be a good student, but maybe not a good employee.
Right. Well, and even helping managers understand that a lot of people who are coming out of college maybe have not had jobs because they were in sports, had, when they were in high school, they had sports, and their parents didn't have time to work. So they never got that. The baby boomers all worked when they were in high school and through college. And so they kind of expect that someone coming right out of college knows if they're not going to show up on time, they need to call. And that they have to bring some of that knowledge along, because you can't assume somebody knows all those expectations. You have to share the expectation. And those are the kinds of things nobody ever tells employees, right? Other than after they're in trouble.
To be honest, it's interesting to hear from the employer side, like you talking about it, because I guess I think maybe I'm on the employer side or I've been out of work, that I kind of forget that maybe not everyone knows that. Like, it's just, I don't know, I just kind of assume that stuff. But now that you've pointed it out, I'm like, oh, maybe it's not actually assumed. Like, I've never actually questioned that.
Right. What's okay to put on an expense report and what's not? If you're new to a company and you're given a credit card, do you know what those rules are? And then, cultures among companies are different. What's okay at one company may not be okay at another company. And managers have typically been in the workforce for a while and forget what it's like to be new in a company. Changing companies every few years has allowed me to keep that in mind, what it's like to be new. And I think that helps employees when I'm helping them onboard, right? Because there's an empathy with it. Nobody told you that we don't take structured breaks here. You take a break when you need one, and nobody's tracking how long it is. Or we're a production floor and we only take our 10-minute breaks this time and this time.
I'm just thinking about this from the student perspective, because this podcast is more directed to like students and young professionals. Do you have like any advice for like, I guess a lot of it goes on to the employer side to share this thing, but maybe they're students and they ask questions about their role, but then they forget to ask questions about the structure. Like, do you have any advice for, okay, I know how I'm going to word this. Do you have any advice for how to make the process easier that a student should be asking? Well, I guess they'd be a young professional at this point, but what they should be asking when they get into their first job, like to help ease the transition for them.
I think it's great to ask a manager, how do you want me to communicate with you? Do you prefer emails? Are texts okay? What is your expectation of me communicating how much work, what work I've gotten done, or how my work is going? Is it okay if I interrupt you during the day? Because you seem really busy and I don't know if I can interrupt you. Ask the question. Don't assume that they're going to share everything. Right?
Yeah.
Because we're human and we forget that you're new to the workforce. Or that you're new to the company. So ask the question, but ask it in a help me understand, help me be more successful. I don't know nobody that I've ever worked with has refused to help someone be successful. They get frustrated when nobody asks and then stumble in onto the landmine because they didn't know.
Mm-hmm. And do you think it's a problem to ask too many questions when you first get started? Like, because I feel when I start any new role, that's kind of where I get nervous because I'm like, I don't know, but maybe I should know that I'm supposed to know because I just graduated, so I should know. Like, is there a way to ask a lot of questions but not be annoying, or should you just ask the questions? Like, I feel that's a debate a lot of people might have.
Yep. I think I tend to be, the more clear you can be, the better, right? So be straightforward and say, you know what, I'm new in this. This is maybe my second or third or first job, whatever that may be. I'm going to ask a lot of questions because I want to do a really good job for this company, right? When you lay it out like that, and I'm asking questions so that I don't make mistakes and so I understand the why behind what I'm doing, I have yet to run into someone who says you don't need to know. And if they do, they're probably not someone you want to work for anyway. I mean, well, it's true, right?
Yeah.
We spend a lot of time at work. Employees are consumers of the employer. You gotta be happy with what you're doing. And if that means you have to ask a lot of questions so that you're not stepping on the unknown landmines, ask those questions.
Okay.
I still ask my boss questions, and I've been in the workforce for a whole lot of time. Sometimes it's just, I need a validation of what I think is the approach. Sometimes it's about the culture of the company. Do we handle it this way or that way?
Mm-hmm.
What's important to the executives? Sometimes that impacts the decisions they make. So it's good to know that sort of thing.
Okay. It's nice to know. It's nice to hear that you also continue to ask questions, and I guess you're kind of, in a way, new to the industry as well. Like, I know you might not be new to HR, but like, it's like you said, you're learning. You know, each company is unique within their own ways within the same industry. So what might have been okay for another company is not okay here, and it's probably better to just ask that and not say something, declare a statement rather than
right.
Like, assumptions can be really bad sometimes.
Well, even right, the hybrid work environment, you can work from home for 2 days a week. Okay, well, is it important that they're the same days every week, that you want it kind of structured, or is that really flexible? That's completely dependent on the manager and the company, and ask the clarifying question rather than assume it's flexible and your manager is like, you know, every day I don't know if you're going to show up or not. Oh, well, that doesn't look so good.
Mm-hmm.
Ask the question, then you avoid that. It doesn't look so good.
Yeah, and I guess if you are questioning it yourself, it might be a good idea just to ask your manager, because if you're questioning it, then they might, like, there's not, obviously if you're questioning it, then there's some kind of, like, you're just not on the same page, or you don't know if you're on the same page. Like, where am I going with this?
Right.
Like, you don't know. So just ask. If you have a question, someone else is probably also wondering it. I think that was like the saying.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So we're coming close to the end of our conversation, which has already kind of flown by, but you've been telling me a lot of like HR stuff that I'm like, okay, I want to know about that. So I just wanted to talk a little bit more about, just a last question about KWS, and just, you mentioned that you were in the R&D role, and this is just pure personal. I just want to know, like, what kind of roles are there at KW? Is it just a bunch of scientists in a room, or is there a lot more to it?
There's a lot more to it. So we have people who are driving tractors, and they're out pulling weeds, and they're putting up fences, and they're making sure that the pesticide gets applied on time, or the watering is done appropriately. We have, and that's everything from new grads who have a degree in agriculture to plant pathologists who are looking at the diseases or the insects, to molecular biologists and cellular biologists who are doing gene editing and therapy and research. The breeders are more statistics based and data driven. So the people who are growing the plants are collecting a bunch of data to provide to those breeders on how the plants are doing. We planted, for easy numbers, we planted 100 plants and 50 of them died, or 20% didn't germinate and grow. That's important. Or we planted 200 plants, 100 of this variety and 100 of that variety, and I'm taking pictures so the breeders can see which one is growing better. And then the breeders say, okay, well, based on that, I need to choose which plants to grow so that I can crossbreed them to get a new plant. And then how does that plant work? And is it doing what I want it to do? Okay, it's not. So then they're doing multiples of that, right? Thousands of seedlings get planted. So those are just on the R&D side, right? We've got people in the lab who are making the solutions for the people who are doing the actual lab work to put the plants in the solutions, to cut the proteins, to, I am not a scientist, so a lot of it goes over my head.
It's okay.
Maybe it does. But there's just a wide variety from, I just want to come in and water the plants and grow the plants, and you tell me where to put them. You tell me what to look for. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Well, it goes to show, I think that's so cool that there's just so many different types of people working together. There's lots of different specializations, and you need some strengths here, you need some strengths there. You need someone who likes it, because these are going to farmers, so you need someone who works with their hands. They know how it grows, but then you have the science mind that wants, there's just so much. So it really goes to show, there's a lot of different roles in agriculture and food. Yes. And just finding something that you enjoy. There has to be something there. There's just so many opportunities.
Absolutely. If you're more service minded, then maybe food service is a better opportunity, or education about food, right? People don't know where their sugar comes from. So we have to work with people to learn about sugar beets and why they're important. I don't think this country's ready to give up their sugar yet. I know I'm not.
Neither am I. Neither am I. So we are at the end of our conversation, Leslie, and I've learned, you're my first professional that works in HR, so I'm so happy it was able to be you to share that and let us know a little bit more about yourself and KSW. I think, KWS, pardon me. Thank you so much for telling me more about KWS. And I'm looking, I know that you're going to be going to the Ag Roundtable. I know that a lot of my teammates are very excited for it, and it's too bad that I won't be there, but I will definitely hope that, I'm losing my train of thought.
Well, we do have, because we do have a facility in St. Louis, we're offering tours of our lab to people who are attending the roundtable. So you might want to suggest that they sign up for that if they haven't.
I definitely will.
It's just really cool to see at that cellular level what people are seeing and doing. And yeah, think about that impacting your food.
For sure. I'd love to do that myself, just to see that perspective. Because again, I'm so used to the food production. So after like the grown, like
Yep.
grain has been taken in that side, but even before then, that's like a whole nother world that I haven't even touched. So, oh, that'd be such a cool experience. Well, again, thank you so much, Leslie, for taking the time to be on the show. I really appreciate learning more about you and, again, learning more about KWS.
Well, it was my pleasure. It was very nice to meet you.